Hello everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour episode. Again, I've just stopped counting at this point. I am the host, Britton. I'm here with the Falcon Reads, also known as Carroll Wainwright, the author of several books such as. Hold on, let me look. Let me pull up Amazon real quick. I know I'm very good at this. We got the Unbearable Heaviness of Being, or Life Reviled, which he has considered his magnum opus. Um, uh, Apocrypha, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's one on here called Slighted Odds. I'm guessing you also wrote this, or was this another Carroll Wainwright?
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh,
Oh,
you
that's
wrote
not
it?
even a book. Oh, that's just an essay, explorative essay I did.
Oh, okay. Well, it has it on Amazon for some reason. Uh, but yeah, he also runs the YouTube channel, The Falcon Reads. How you doing, man?
I am good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, just hanging out. It's a Sunday, I get kind of I'm really sluggish on Sundays.
My down day. It's the day I get all my housework done.
So yeah, I know. Yeah, you're doing pretty good today. I saw you put
Yeah.
up a new video
Yep.
about Hiroshima because Hiroshima anniversary is today. Well, as of the recording of this, because it's probably gonna go up in a while. So yeah, you're a writer. You're also a YouTuber. I mean, you sound like your name sounds like you're a protagonist in like a Southern Gothic novel. So.
It's just a pen name that I use to publish some of the.
Oh, that's not your actual name.
Oh, no, no, Carol Wayne. Oh goodness, no, that's not my real name. That's just the name I go by online and my pen name and everything to obscure my true identity. In other words. You don't write the kind of stuff I write and then use your real name. Oh no, that's
Hey,
a
grandma will see it and be like, "Oh no!" It's like, "What
yeah,
is this?"
precisely.
Yeah,
It's exactly what
you
went
don't
through
want
my
like a
head.
grandma seeing it. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly.
I mean, I haven't read your books, but I've seen your channel, and you cover a lot of books on your channel. You've even covered some comics and movies on occasion.
Mm.
Um, I was actually watching some because I like to watch videos before I talk to people, kind of get a gist of what they do. I discovered you from Jason Furman,
Mm.
and also your McCarthy content because I'm also a big Cormac McCarthy fan. So there you
He
go.
was my man, R.I.P.
I know. It was sad when I heard he died, but I'm like, dude was almost 90.
He had a good run.
He had a good run. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you saw his interview with Krause, he wasn't looking too hot.
No, sadly he wasn't. He was showing his age in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the things that always threw me off about that conversation, people are like, oh, Cross is talking over him. I'm all like, guys, he's barely saying anything.
He can't hardly talk at that point.
he's, I'm like, what do you want him to do? He's an old man. He's an old man. You write stuff, and you also
yeah, he
watch
was
and review stuff.
Yeah, he was really my biggest influence on how I try to write. It's really his kind of his kind of biblical style, KJV Bible type prose that I
Yeah,
really emulate. I think he took what Faulkner did and did it better. I think
I haven't read
because
Faulkner yet. Actually, that's a lie. I have read his short stories, like Rose for Emily.
that's the one everybody has to read that at some point. That's
I liked it. Yeah, it's good. Though I'm really terrible at keeping up with short stories. Though I mean, there's like some I really enjoy, like Poe or Ray
yeah,
Bradbury. But those are like the classics, right?
yeah.
Um, I guess you could say Lovecraft, but I don't really like Lovecraft's style all that much. It's pretty.
It's definitely an acquired taste. I'll
Yeah,
say
it
that.
is. It is.
Written in that intentionally archaic, old-fashioned kind of way that's kind of throws you for a loop a little bit sometimes.
Like, look, I like big words as much as the next guy, but Lovecraft just takes it to another level. I'm like, God.
He did indeed, yes.
Your work is pretty well known for being very pessimistic and bleak and depraved,
Yes,
from what I've heard.
the
I haven't read them yet, but like I read like a little sample from Amazon, but that was about it. Because I'm like,
yes, the joviality on display on the channel belies a much more pessimistic and dour um, outlook than what I might convey in the videos. But yeah, it's I have been disillusioned by quite a lot in life, perhaps by life itself even.
well, yeah, I remember I watched your video, and you're just like, this is the ultimate treatise on like why against life or something like that. Or I'm
Yes.
probably butchering that, but I was like, okay, I'll have to read this at some point. And
It is in the work in which I poured all my negativity into it to try to make a point about our existence as people and why it's really not quite as glamorous as you know a lot of people like to say it is or might be.
well, I did joke with you the other day, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go on here and prove you wrong. But that was kind of a joke. But I did want to discuss pessimism a little bit because I haven't really
Well,
met like I don't want to say you're like Russ Cole because you seem a lot more jovial than, than Russ Cole from True Detective. You're not
well,
like you're
we
not
might be
with
more similar than you think.
you're not you're not you don't like whistle when you talk. So I guess you're doing fine for yourself.
True.
Um, but yeah, no, I'll admit I texted you this the other day. I'm like, so wait, is this a novel? Because I thought it was like a conspiracy against the human race kind of thing, where it's like this kind of non this weird screed that he just kind of made, and he's like, here you go, want a
No,
novel?
I
Go right
took
fucking
Thomas
there.
Ligotti's book.
I'll
I
give you
took
this right
Thomas
now.
Ligotti's book and kind of novelized it, I should say. I took that and kind of put it into a fictional format, you might say, in other words.
I also thought it was cool that you said you were gonna use you used Poe's Mask of the Red Death as a setting.
Yes, indeed. That is the stage for the play in the book, is the same world as the story, Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Mask of the Red Death. And I think I tied it all in kind of relatively in an interesting fashion, I think. Tried to, at least.
Well, I was gonna ask, so like, would you like? I'm guessing it's not really a traditional genre type of experience, but like, would you call it like apocalyptic, or is it like what is it like in terms of like genre and what the story's about, rather than just here's my grand treatise on why life is really whack.
Yes, you might say it takes place as Poe's story. Well, Poe's story, I don't know exactly when the time setting was for that story, but I kind of took it to be like set in some kind of quasi medieval setting. And yeah, it's kind of like an apocalyptic, it's kind of like COVID to level 11 in in it.
Yeah.
It's about an epidemic that's, killing everybody. And then in my version, it's like, humanity is on the edge, but the questions that it grapples with is whether or not that's actually, something to be lamented or not, or whether it might be uh, more positive experience than most people might assume it to be, perhaps.
So I also wanted to ask, so is it like you actually sympathize with these ideas, or you just wanted to explore them in fiction, or both?
Some of both. I am, again, quite pessimistic in my outlook because, like I said, I've been disillusioned by quite a bit in life. And so I'm trying to kind of say there hasn't really been a book. I don't think there had really been a book, a novel, a fictional work, in other words, that really tackled that head on so much. So that was really what I was trying to do, trying to explore some of the uh, the craft that goes on up in here, trying to wrestle it out and kind of beat it into some form of coherence and see what I come up with to see whether or not I can't make some cogent points about life and death and such.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I saw your post and I was like, okay, Rust, and you just and then you comment back. You're like, hey, I used a line from him in this, and I just laughed. I'm
I did, yes.
like, and I don't know if True Detective inspired you at all, or if you've seen it, but I would hope so, since you're very clearly from the South, if
I
nothing
have
else.
not. I don't actually have HBO. I've seen parts of it, but I've never seen the
Oh,
whole thing all the
so
way through.
good.
I know I don't have HBO. I really need to remedy that so I can watch that, but or I
Sure,
could
you can
just
go to
buy the
like, sure you
DVD,
can
I
go to
guess.
Walmart and like find it in a bin somewhere. I don't know, but
If I did, you better believe I would snatch that right up.
But I was about to say, well, I mean, you read Cormac McCarthy, so I guess you don't have a very rosy view of the world if you like Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, Cormac, he was quite negative in his own right. Although I think there was still a glimmer of some kind of hopefulness, or at the bottom of all of his books seem to have, or most of his books at least seem to have some kind of little glimmer, a little shine of some kind of thing that's worth fighting for. In other words, worth
So yeah,
sticking around for.
and you're just like no.
No, no, not worth it. It's not.
No, it's it's weird. I mean, I love McCarthy, but it's like I wouldn't say I'm an ah I like to, or I've said it on my Twitter. I'm a constantly beleaguered optimist. I'm like, look, we could do so much better, but we're not doing it. So stop that right now.
Yeah,
And you're
that
just
we
like,
definitely.
and like, I guess you're just like, fuck all this bullshit.
Well, maybe, and if you want to put it bluntly, perhaps we definitely could do better as people. Although I think there are aspects of ourselves as people that are beyond our control, such as the way we're wired, the way that we're programmed by biology to be a certain way, which is I think we would actually frown upon in any other circumstance than our own. I think so. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of the human experience, I suppose you might say. Now, at least, whatever optimism I had is kind of, I guess it took,
Well,
I
we
guess it
haven't
took.
nuked. Well, we haven't nuked ourselves yet, so clearly we're doing something right.
I don't know. Have you been watching the news?
That's true.
We're
That's
edging,
true.
we're edging closer and closer to that. It looks like
Oh Lord, yeah, no. I always think of Watchmen when I hear about nukes. The clock is
the
getting closer to
doomsday
midnight.
clock. Yeah, yep. Those hands are closer to midnight than ever.
Yeah, he also wrote a book called But I guess what's the story though? Is it like a bunch of people just like trying to survive and some sort of McCarthy-esque decadence and depravity?
Oh no, it's definitely it's 100% depravity, start to finish. Let's say it's like I said in the video, it's kind of likenable to The Handmaid's Tale actually, because
Oh,
in that book you have a world where it's kind of waning due to infertility, and so women have to be forcibly impregnated to carry on the
ugh.
human race. And then my book's like that, except it's way more grotesque than
Oh
that. It's
God.
so it was my first shot at writing a female main character, which I like to think, at least in my own mind, that I may or may not have succeeded to some degree with that, much as I might could be said to.
Very, I guess so. So, like, you would say you're like a philosophical pessimist, like Rust.
Yeah, well, no, I disagree with some of the viewpoints that are espoused in True Detective, such as that consciousness is an accident of nature. I don't really think that's true at all. I think consciousness is really the point of nature. I don't think that a world's without uh, human consciousness or higher consciousness of some sort. I don't really think it would have much of a point. I mean, can you imagine a universe without us in it, or without something that can think like we
Life?
can in it?
No, you cannot. It's weird because human beings are such like an anomaly in comparison to the rest of the animal kingdom. 'Cause
We are, but you gotta ask yourself: is consciousness? I think it would be inextricable from just higher intelligence. You know, we're not the only animals to possess consciousness. The apes do, elephants, dolphins, certain species of bird. What I mean by consciousness would be any animal that could pass the self-recognition test. If you've ever seen, they put like a mirror up and the animal.
Yeah. And they say we're related to apes. So.
Yeah. I mean, well, once you get to the point where you can recognize yourself, where an animal can recognize themselves as an individual, to me, that's when you're in the point of true higher consciousness, because you're able to recognize not only that something exists outside of you, but also that you yourself as an individual exist. So we're not the only ones to possess that, if you want to use that criteria, but we are biased.
Yeah, I should have thought about that. I'm like, oh man, apes, forgot all about that. But I mean, like, there's not a lot of. Well, I guess we're unique because we can think about why we're this way, rather than just being like an ape and being like, oh look, that's me.
Well, once the apes, came along, to think intelligence became more of the dominant factor rather than brute physical strength, as it is with most other animals. So once you get to hominid style intelligence, it seems to be that the more intelligent the animal is the one that prevails. And so I think once you get to a certain level of intelligence, consciousness is inextricable from that. I think you can't have you can have like AI, like a computer that can do mathematical functions and stuff that can't really be said to be conscious. But I think organically, at least, you have a certain level of high intelligence. You're going to have what we would denote as consciousness, I think.
Fair enough, I guess. I don't know. So you had read The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. Admittedly, I have not. All I know about it is like it repeats a lot of the similar points that like Rust made. Like I've even heard that Nick Pizzolatto got in like trouble a little bit. They thought he was like plagiarizing him, even though I think people who make that argument are kind of missing the point.
Yeah, that book was, I believe, the main inspiration. That and The King in Yellow, which was the main thematic inspiration. But Thomas Ligotti's The Conspiracy Against the Human Race was, I think, Nick Pizzolatto's main source of philosophical material for the background of the first season of True Detective. It does have a lot of antinatalist sentiments and such in it about how we probably shouldn't bring more people into the world, so to speak.
Yeah, it's one of those books. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably gonna vehemently disagree with I'm probably gonna get mad at the book because I'm gonna disagree with it so much. But I do want to read it at least to kind of get a gist of what it's about.
It is the best nonfiction book I think I've read yet. It's beautifully written for a work of nonfiction. I could highly recommend it, even if you do end up disagreeing with it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be like, I'm gonna have kids anyway. I'm gonna flip the finger at Ligotti. So fuck all y'all bitches. No, but no, it is a book I would like to read at some point. I started one of his collections a few years ago because Penguin got like 2 of his collections and they put it together. Well, I started it. I read one of the stories, really liked it, and then I kind of just lost interest, and I hope to get back to it at some point. He's good. He's very good from what I've read.
Yes, he's a heck of a
writer. Yeah, I saw your Hiroshima video, and you're just like, man, wasn't good. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's an example of nonfiction that was done quite poorly, I think. Good intentions, but terrible execution, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's certainly the classics that haven't aged well. Like one could argue, Heart of Darkness. Oh, I disagree. Well, let's see. What are some other ones? Scarlet Letter, maybe.
I don't think the writing style in that book has aged all that well. It's rather difficult to read, but I actually found that book somewhat enjoyable, and I love Heart of Darkness too. I actually wrote a paper on that in college, actually.
Oh yeah, it's a great book. I have it up here. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
Have you seen Apocalypse Now?
I have seen Apocalypse Now. It is a very, I love that movie. Probably my
Yeah.
favorite war film of all time.
Yeah, oh, it's up there for me. Yes, definitely. Great
Um,
adaptation that kind of keeps a lot of the same themes, even though it plays around obviously with the setting and context. But one of the best adaptations I think ever.
yeah, no, I discussed it with Jason. I know you watch Jason's channel because I'm like, man, what's a book I could talk about? And I decided, no, why, I'll just do this because I've always enjoyed it. And yeah, no, and he was kind of like, why'd you like this so much? I'm like, well, it feels like, read like something like Blood Meridian, and it feels like you're transported to another plane of existence. Like that's why I like Heart of Darkness so much.
I do know that feeling. Yes.
I like Blood Meridian for that same reason. It's almost like you're in this other place. Like it is our world, but it's like there's this like weird otherworldliness to it.
Yes, it has a very, very distinct kind of mystical quality to it a little bit. It's kind of palpable.
Then again, you could say that about a lot of McCarthy's books, and I'm just sitting there like, how does he do it?
That is the question I'd like to know is how he does it, so I could replicate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading Suttree right now, and like, aside from Blood Meridian, it might be the densest thing he's ever written. Like, he's using words like, hold on, let me find some of the like big freaking words he uses in this. He uses,
That's Suttree was the only book of his that I just truly did not like. I thought it was just kind of pointless. It doesn't really go anywhere.
yeah, I've heard it's kind of plotless, and it's just kind of about the vibes. It's more
Yeah,
like
it's
a
a
vibes
vibe.
novel,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
where it's just like, here you go, we're doing this thing. Like, there was this one part where this dude's having sex with a watermelon. I'm like, okay. All right, this is what. I wonder where he came up with that.
Yeah, the watermelon thing made me laugh, but besides that, it wasn't that big of a didn't connect with me quite like his other works did.
Yeah, no, I would say like his. I was kind of surprised you said the Passenger was your favorite because or at least it is now. I haven't read it yet. I do have it in my bedroom. I just haven't picked it up yet. I kind of want to read some. I want to complete the Border trilogy. Maybe read like Outer Dark. So I want to because
Yeah,
Outer Dark sounds really cool.
I could really recommend reading all the other books of his before you get to that one because I really do think that one kind of encapsulates all of his other books. I think there's kind of elements and shades from his past works in that one.
Hmm. Yeah, I had a feeling it would be a swan song.
It was, yeah.
It's freaking 89 years old when he put it out, so
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's but yeah, no, he's definitely my top three writers for Cormac McCarthy. It's definitely inspired me. His style is very visual, I must say.
Have you read Moby Dick?
Yeah, long time ago, and I remember I'm like, what the fuck is this?
That was McCarthy's favorite book. There's he really took a lot of inspiration, both writing wise as well as
Perhaps I'll have to
thematically.
read it again, but I remember not loving it. I'm like, oh man, what is
It
this?
took me so long to get through that. It was incredibly boring, but it paid out dividends for me whenever I finally did do it. I could recommend revisiting it. It really is a great book, probably the greatest American book I would say that's ever been written.
Yeah, no, I've heard it be called a great American novel. It's one of those I'm like, maybe I'll have to. Let's like again. It's one of those I haven't read in a long time. I might have to try it again at some point because I don't know if I got it really. All the stuff he was saying, like, and also he goes into like very monotonous detail about like whaling, and I'm like, okay,
So much whale stuff, yes.
I know. Oh my gosh. And like, yeah, I remember I was talking with another guy on the show the other day, and actually it's like a month ago, and he was like, Ishmael surviving by clinging on to the like guy's coffin. It's the most McCarthy-esque ending you could think of.
Indeed, yeah, you can see some definitely where he's drawing from. I think in that.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I never thought of it like that. And then like there's people who are like, oh yeah, Blood Meridian's like Moby Dick. I was like, again, I'll have to read Moby Dick again at some point. It's oh god. I mean, I already did a discussion about Blood Meridian, so oh man.
A lot to discuss with that one, yes.
I know there's so much, and it's
The
like
gift that keeps on giving.
yeah, I know. I'm like watching it. I'm like, good lord, there's more stuff I'm thinking about after watching this. Like, why is it that like we get the sense that the judge is doing all these horrible things, but we never actually see him doing it for a majority of it. Now we do see him do a lot of terrible things, but there's a lot of things we don't see. We just assume it's him doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguity in that book, quite a bit.
I've even heard some theories like the kid might have been the one who was kidnapping the kids, but yeah.
I have heard such. Yeah, I've heard that too myself. I don't know how much stock I put in that, but definitely gives you a lot to ponder.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually just covered No Country for Old Men the other day, and I'm like, guys, if you want a good place to start and it's coherent, No Country's probably a good place, or The Road, and I just read All the Pretty Horses finally back in January, which I liked. I saw you covered the Border trilogy, but I'm like, oh no, I hope he doesn't spoil it, so I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I love the Border trilogy. I think the second two books in it are actually better. I thought they were than All the Pretty Horses, but I still love that book. I always have.
Yeah, I've heard The Crossing is really good. I'm like, oh.
It is, yes.
Heard he talks about wolves a lot in that.
A lot of stuff, yeah. That's about wolves. A lot of stuff in there about wolves.
But yeah, no, I enjoy. But yeah, no, I enjoy McCarthy a lot. He's a very good guy, or very good writer. I don't know who he was as a person, but
You said he was in your top three. Who are the other two?
Alan Moore and Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Moore. I have a couple of his comics. I have Watchmen and From Hell. I really need to read more of his work.
Yeah, From Hell isn't one of my favorites from him, but it's definitely like there's a lot of like research that went into it, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's that one. That I did not like the art style in that one so much as it was not very colorful in that book. But I've never read any of his prose work. Have you read like Jerusalem?
Oh man, I haven't touched that with a 10-foot pole yet. I have it up here. I'm like, I'm trying to get one of my friends to read it with me, but he's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I do love Ray Bradbury though. I love Fahrenheit 451, and I've read Dandelion Wine, and I tried to read the Martian Chronicles, but couldn't I couldn't do it with that one. But Fahrenheit 451 is truly a well-deserved masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a book that's grown on me over the years. Because I actually like stuff like Something Wicked This Way Comes, or you mentioned the Martian Chronicles. I like those more, but I do appreciate Fahrenheit 451 quite a bit. Well written. I read I read it again a few years ago in high school, and I liked it. I was like, wow, this is better than I remember it being.
Yeah, I think it's one that you. Oh wait, having an issue with my internet. Let me know if I freeze.
No, I can see you fine.
All right. It's a book that I had to read twice, I think, until I finally was like, okay, beautifully written book. He's an excellent prose stylist. Was, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, he was. Well, the thing is with Fahrenheit 451, I don't necessarily agree with this like idea that like technology is a bad thing. But I do agree with like how people are easily distracted and how we're kind of missing these beautiful things. There's all this beauty in the world, and we're just missing it because we're too distracted by meaningless bullshit.
Absolutely, and that's a theme that he revisits. If you haven't read Dandelion Wine, there is shades of that in that book as well. Kind of technophobic, I guess, but
Yeah, he was.
true, true nonetheless. The more technology does for us, the less we have to do, and so we just kind of become dumber and dumber as a society because we're not as much as required of us. And most people read that book and think that it's like about Nazis banning books, but you're right. That's exactly what Bradbury himself said it was about technology supplanting books, because that's one of the most
Yeah,
so
he's
many
just
people
like
don't.
I kind of wrote this as like a caution about technology, but I'm glad there's this censorship talk here.
Yeah, very important.
Um, but yeah, I do think it's interesting because of that exploration of how like there is like so much beauty in the world, and then there is like this great literature and poetry, and like people are missing out on that because again they're kind of just distracted by all this meaningless crap.
Yeah, I think that I was probably one of the very few kids from my graduating class who probably still reads anything, any books really, because so many others were just into the like video games and television and stuff, because those are not quite as demanding, I guess. But I can understand the sentiments of the book quite well. And
Yeah, and I mean, I liked watching like TV, and I still enjoy playing video games. I haven't played a lot recently, but now I mean, I do think like technology can create great things, but I do see where Bradbury is coming from with Fahrenheit 451. That like, look at all this great stuff you're missing out on while you're
this is the
doing
little things.
while you're watching all these this family shit on TV.
Yep, it's the little things you miss out on.
Yeah, like there's one scene where he reads the poetry to his wife, and she's just like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, I'm one of those guys. Like I said, constantly beleaguered optimist. I'm always like, I think people will always read as long as there's stuff being put out there. Now, is our means of reading going to change? Definitely going to, because we got these. So um, we can get like Kindle on our phones now, even though it's a piece of shit.
Is it? I've never messed with. If you hear anything, that's my cat trying to get in over here at the
All
door.
right,
Uh,
that's fine.
I've never messed with Kindle really. I'm strictly a paper and ink kind of guy myself.
No, man, I'm the same way. I guess I'm just kind of old fashioned. That's it.
No.
Because I'm like, you know what? Screw all you guys. I'm just gonna read these books, and you're just gonna like it. Yeah, my mom's always like, why you get so many books? And I'm like, because there's so much more to read.
Exactly. So many books, so little time.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking to her the other day about like 300, like how long is like too long of a book for me? Like a book that's long would be like 700 something pages maybe, or
Yeah.
even longer than that. She's like, oh wow, that's weird, because she's not as big of a reader as I am. So she did read
Yeah.
like she did read like 50 Shades of Grey though. That was or
Oh,
well
she
no
did.
or no she read Twilight. My aunt read 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. I've read Twilight back in the day. I think that book gets a little bit too much flack. I think it's not actually quite as terrible as a lot of people make it out to be. Now,
Eh,
50 Shades of Grey, I'm not can't comment on that one.
I've never liked it personally, but it's probably just. Now, do I think it's been overhated? Yeah, but it's just kind of. I mean, hey, Stephanie Meyer's laughing at us. She's getting the money out of all this, so.
Yeah, she can laugh all the way to the bank, as my mom used to say.
No, but like, what are some other authors you enjoy? I mean, aside from McCarthy, because you've covered him a lot on your channel.
William Gay, if you've ever read any of his stuff, he may have been the only author that could actually outright McCarthy, I think.
Wait,
Um,
William Gay? Okay.
Yeah, William Gay. He has books like The Long Home. He actually also has a book named Twilight and Provinces of Night. I actually have some of them over here. He was a remarkable writer. He was this guy who lived like in the backwoods of Tennessee. He grew up, I think, around like where McCarthy did because they actually corresponded. He is an excellent writer if you like McCarthy stuff or Faulkner stuff. It blends right in there. And then also I like Nabokov. He is also just
I've only
excellent.
read Lolita from him. I've always been intimidated to check out his other books. I'm like, oh
I
man.
I have a couple on my shelves here that I haven't read yet.
I
But
heard he
yeah,
did one
Lolita.
about chess. I'm like, am I gonna get that?
Yeah, I don't think I would. I don't think that would go right over my head. I think. But let's see who else. Let's see. I think most of my favorite writers are probably dead. Shakespeare. I
I
don't
do love
think it.
Shakespeare as well.
I don't think it can be overstated just how important Shakespeare is. Even though it's kind of cliche, to say you like Shakespeare, but
Yeah,
uh,
me and Jason have kind of beefed because he's kind of like, oh yeah, Shakespeare, whatever. I'm like, it's not just whatever, sir.
it's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I also like who do I like? Well, I used to like Dean Koontz, the Golden Age, 1980 to
Yeah,
1995.
I've never read Koontz. I've always been like, oh man, is he just like poor guy Stephen King? I'm kind of now.
He
I've
is
heard he's
now.
good. I have
He
heard
used to be
or
good.
he can be good. I have heard he can be good. He's written some good stuff, but yeah, I've never
One
read
of
him.
my favorite books is actually his novel Intensity, which I think that's just a masterpiece. But yeah, very much now he's just fallen off so hard. He's just kind of phoning it in, I think, at this point. So I don't really read any of his books now. But that golden age, 1980s, halfway through the 90s, Koontz was not the highest brow literature maybe, but for what it was fun. And I do like Stephen King sometimes more than
Yeah,
others.
I mean, you write as much as he does, and you're not always gonna have bangers. So I mean,
Yeah, I think his glory days are far in the past, but so he does have some classic books. Like have you read The Dark Tower?
long time ago, yes.
That truly that's one of the only times I've ever actually been blown away by his writing is when you get to the end of that last book and you're like, oh, it's it's full circle. I was like,
Yeah,
for the guy who writes such terrible endings, sometimes that was like the greatest ending ever.
yeah. No, it's kind of funny. One of my favorites from him is one of, well, it's not really new anymore. It's more in the decade old now. But 11/22/63. I thought that was a really good book.
Oh yeah, that's one of his best, probably since 2000, I'd say.
Yeah, I just read that. I'm like, man, he's just shooting off on all cylinders there.
He was indefinitely.
Or I thought so. I mean, there's probably some people who don't like it. Which, what is wrong with you? Some of his early stuff's pretty good, though. I mean, like, I do like Salem's Lot because it makes vampires actually pretty creepy, but like it is kind of just. I think it did what that book was trying to do better. Ultimately, like
I,
here's this small town, and here's like the really dark, depraved shit going under. It's
I
kind of
have it down here on my shelf,
ah,
but I have not read that because I know what he does at the end of that book. It's the scene that everybody like.
yeah. It's the ending is really good. Like the actual like end is good. Now there is a lot of stuff like you could tell he was hitting drugs pretty hard at that time.
Yeah, yeah, that was cocaine writing there.
Yeah. Um, one story I always share this because it always just fucking blows my mind. Like his drug addiction was so bad, he
Mhm.
said, like he can't even remember writing Cujo.
Yeah,
For some reason, that's always kind of blown me away. I'm like, how does that like? How do you get so like fucked up on drugs? You don't even remember writing a book. That would
yeah,
freak me out. Like I would just be like, what? What? Okay. I can see why he was probably like, okay, I think I have a problem here.
yeah. He definitely did. He really did. Let's see, who's another modern author that I like? I can't really think of. Uh, I don't really like Thomas Pynchon that much. If you've ever read any of his stuff,
I have
uh,
not. It's funny. Because Jason has like read-alongs, and I'm like, all right, I'll just put in pension for shits and giggles. No one's gonna vote for this. It might win. I'm like, how does this happen?
yeah, I think I've read about as much Pynchon as I care to. And DeLillo, I do have White Noise right over here that I was going to try to read this year. I don't know if I'll get to it this year or not, but uh, DeLillo, I do like his prose. It's just that the content of his books, I just don't really
Yeah,
gel with.
DeLillo's always kind of seemed like I don't know if you know who Harold Bloom is,
Yeah, yeah, oh
the
yeah,
critic. Yeah, a
yeah.
few years ago he was kind of like, ah, he was being like cranky old man at Stephen King, and he's like, there's four great American authors: McCarthy, Philip Roth, Don DeLillo, and Thomas Pynchon. I'm all like, okay. I mean
Now
McCarthy,
there's
I'll
only
definitely
one.
now McCarthy, I'll definitely agree on. I'll give him that. But I
Oh
like
yeah,
just from the sounds of now one, I don't really like Philip Roth all that much as like
I've
a
never read any of his stuff actually.
I don't know if yeah, DeLillo's just I know a lot of authors like DeLillo, but I've never like it's never really appealed to me. I do want to read him at some point, like because I don't want to just write him off because I don't want to do that.
I could recommend reading Libra. If you just read one book by him, I would personally say let it be that one. I think that one, that's the only book I've read by him that truly actually impressed me was Libra. I think that's his true masterpiece, not Underworld like Harold Bloom said it was.
Yeah, no, but my thing is, it kind of sounds like that, and I know it's kind of rich coming from a white guy, but it just kind of seemed like white people angst, and I'm like, I kind of don't want to read about that.
And his books are kind of, it's like the same theme kind of over and over. White people angst, the consumerism is bad kind of thing. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
something
Too
like
much
that.
of that.
Now, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I'm like, look, I get there's a lot of stuff we can angst about, but it's just, like it's the same thing with Roth's work. There's like a lot, except it's like about it's about the Jewish experience.
Yeah.
I would read now. I mean, I would read Michael Chabon before I read Philip Roth personally. I think he's a much better writer about the Jewish experience. But
I have Cavalier and Clay up here, but I haven't read it yet. Have you read that one?
I just completed it, as a
You
matter of
did?
fact, not too long ago. It was fantastic.
Really?
Or I
Glad
thought
to hear
so.
that.
But yeah. I mean, I'm like, yeah. I mean, if you want to read one, like the Plot Against America, it's not good. I didn't like it, but it's it's eh. It's basically like, ooh, what if Lindbergh won the election instead of Roosevelt? And there's a bunch of like, I really don't want to say this because I don't want this to get taken out of context, but it's basically about like Jewish angst,
Yeah.
and like he's like in banging women and like
Yeah.
feeling angst about it. And I'm like, I want to fucking read about that.
Yeah, I've never felt any desire to read any of Philip Roth's books. I may, if I see one in like a Goodwill or somewhere, pick it up, but I don't think I'll be buying any of his books actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you don't like, you said DeLillo is about like angst and consumer. You're probably not gonna
Yeah,
like Roth because
yeah,
he
I don't
covers
think
a
I
lot
will.
of similar topics.
Yeah.
And I read it. I'm like, how do people like this? Voice crack. I apologize. No, I mean, with McCarthy, it's like okay, there's like this weird mystical element. I'm like, yeah, I fuck with that.
Yeah. Same. Same here. Yeah.
Do you also like McCarthy because he's written about the South? I've only read one of his, or well, I guess technically two since I'm reading Suttree right now. But um,
Well,
I did
I
read
do.
Child of God.
I didn't really like that one very much.
I didn't love it either, but it's one I'm kind of like, you know what? I should go back to that at some point because I don't think
It
I'm in
might
the right
grow on me.
headspace. What?
I of the books that he wrote that were about the South, the only one that I truly, really, genuinely liked was Outer Dark. That was the only one that I really,
Yeah, I've
really
heard
was
Outer
sold.
Dark's really good, and
It's
I saw
pretty
your
good. Yeah.
review, and I'm like, I gotta go pick this up. So I
Oh
did.
yeah, I did review that one, didn't I? Yeah. That one's probably. let's say that was his second book. That was a big step up from the first book, I think. And then I think he stepped back with Child of God. Then I think he stepped back even farther with Suttree. But everything after that was pure gold, I think.
Yeah, I guess those Southern Gothic ones was him just kind of like figuring, like kind of trial and error, him kind of figuring out what worked and what didn't.
He's better, I think, at it. Like Faulkner, I don't have anything against Faulkner, but a lot of his books I think were kind of, I don't know, like I read Light in August last year and I just thought it was just kind of dumb. I didn't think it was
Just
very
put that
good.
on the
It was
blurb.
kind
It
of,
was just kind of dumb.
yeah, it was. It
Carroll
just felt,
Wainwright.
it did. It just felt that
Do you
way.
like
And
his westerns and other works more than his Southern Gothic?
yeah, like I just finished another Faulkner book actually today, which was Absalom, which is up in the queue to be reviewed, and I think that one was probably my favorite of his that I've read so far, and that's not saying a lot because I haven't really loved any of his books, but I'm gonna give him a fair shot. I mean, he is the Southern writer, he is the guy who did it the best, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard. Like, I'll admit I tried Light in August, but it was one of those things where I was kind of like not in the right headspace, and also I borrowed it from my library and I turned it in really late, so I had to pay the money for that. So that sucked. But I do want to try 'em. I'm always asking people. I'm like, yo, what do I start with Faulkner? And they're like, yo, like with Light in August or something. I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do that. He's like, don't start with Absalom. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, that one's pretty up there, but
I heard he has the like Guinness World Book of Records for longest sentence or something like that.
yeah, it's in there somewhere. I don't remember where because all those sentences are just so ridiculously long that you kind of I don't even remember where it was.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the Southern Gothic style, but like, God, where's some Southern Gothic books you've read? Not a lot of them.
Have you read The Devil All the Time?
No, I know. That's another one. I actually just added that to my to read sooner list because Jason's always getting after me to go read them, and I'm like, you know what? I'll try it. I'll get knock 'em stiff. I'll try it out. Maybe I'll try out The Devil All the Time. I saw them. They did the movie a few years ago. I didn't watch it, but
I thought The Devil All the Time is an example of an author trying way too hard to emulate other authors, namely William Faulkner and Flannery O'Connor, because that book, it's not really original. It didn't really have much of a point other than just to be nasty, and it is kind of nasty. Uh,
oh,
but
but you wrote Life Reviled. You should like depraved stuff.
well, yeah, but there was a method to my madness with his. It was just kind of gratuity. In the movie, I tried watching that movie, and it was just like, no, I didn't like it. I thought it was just kind of grim and pointless.
Wow. Um, Admittedly, though, I haven't read Pollock. I know he's compared to. I've heard him be compared to like McCarthy and Paul or not Pollock. Uh, um, oh God, Faulkner. Again, I haven't read Faulkner.
He gets compared to McCarthy, I think, because it's kind of somewhat, even though it takes place in Ohio, it's kind of Southern Gothic. But in terms of prose and writing, I don't think he's even in the same league as McCarthy. The prose in that book didn't really wow me all that much.
Yeah, no, he's one I'd like to try at some point. I know me and Jason clash on a lot of. If you hadn't noticed already, we clash on a lot on a lot of books. I'm like, no, this book's good. And he's like, yeah, no, it's not.
That's the good thing about literature is that we can agree to disagree and still share the same taste.
Well, I mean, I do have gone to see The Riverman because I'm like, you know what? He did a review of it yesterday, so I'm just going to do a review of mine this upcoming week. Fine. You force my hand.
Nice point, counterpoint kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I liked it a lot, so, I mean, you know,
Oh, it's a
Also,
short movie.
also a bit of a Southern Gothic kind of. Yeah, it's very short. It's like 165 pages. It's more of like a novella, really, but whatever.
Oh.
I don't want to. I try not to get too technical with what it is, because it's like, oh man, what constitutes a novella? What constitutes a short story? I don't know. I don't fucking know anymore.
I think a novel is generally considered to be 50,000 words or more. Anything less than that is a novella, and I think anything less than 20,000 words is a short story. I think that's the cutoff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've gone to see the Riverman, but I do recommend it to people a lot. So
I've seen it. It's been on my radar. It's cropped up a lot. I think it's popular on like Book Talk or something. It's
yeah, that's oh God, I don't want to say I agree with Book Talk. It's like,
I
God,
don't
it's
even
so
have to.
cringy. Ugh, ugh. I'm squirming in my seat right now. But I can say that I personally really enjoyed this book, and it was one of my favorite reads last year. So
Oh, really?
it
That's
was.
all that counts.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's very it's very. I thought it was very atmospheric, and like the best I did a conversation with Jason about prose. Keep bringing him up, but and I'm like, we were talking about what we like in prose, and I'm like, I like prose that engages my senses, and it feels like I'm like there, where I can like see and like smell it, feel what's going on, all that fun stuff, and I think this book does that well.
Hey, that's all that matters. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you feel about it, but that's just kind of how I view it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like prose that's generally rich in like metaphor and simile, like McCarthy's prose, and also that I also like McCarthy's use of uh, or not use of punctuation, or rather, I
Oh
think the
yeah,
least punctuation uh, is better. It gives it a better flow, I think, than if you use commas instead of ands, I suppose.
yeah. That's probably the biggest gripe I've heard from a lot of people. Like he doesn't use punctuation.
Yeah.
I'm like, too fucking bad.
Yeah, exactly.
He's one of those you're taking it or you're leaving it.
Yeah.
There's no middle and it's funny because like a lot of his books are kind of about like there is no middle road when it comes to moral decisions and like stuff like that, especially in like No Country. I actually reread No Country, and I did a review for it. Um, yeah, it still holds up. There's some scenes from there's some scenes in the book that are more stretched out than it is in like the movie, but
Mhm.
very good. Yeah, it's also probably like his most like bare bones.
It really is. It really is. It was originally a screenplay that he had to turn into a novel. I think that explains the simplicity of the writing. But yeah, that one definitely holds up. I think that may be the one of his that I've read the most. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed with something you said. You're like, it's probably his most old man novel.
Yeah, yeah. I can understand that perspective, though. Uh, there is something to be said for that outlook that's in that book. Growing up in the deep South here, the sheriff in that book and in the movie really does sound like like my grandparents or somebody that I would know, and so I can really understand I think where he's coming from with that, where things, even though things get technologically better, morally things seem to be getting worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go a step further. I'd say he's saying that it's always been there.
It has, but that's the thing, is that it's like because like Blood Meridian, it's like the whole humanity has always been complete crap. It's like you say, it's always been there.
Well,
But
I don't know if it's complete or I don't, you say completely crap.
humanity. Well, I mean, he paints a pretty dim picture of
Oh,
humanity.
yeah. I was about to say, yeah. I don't know if he's saying that, but he's saying people have been capable of violence, and people will still be capable of violence no matter where we're at.
In No Country, in the little italicized parts where the sheriff narrates, he puts information about like the schools, how they've declined and such. And I think that might be actual like real world information. How like in the 40s and 50s, like students like chewed gum or ran in the halls, and then in like the 70s and 80s, it's like or in the 70s because the book takes place in 1980. But like in the 70s and 60s, they're like it's arson, murder, drugs, and everything. And it's like things. It's kind of paradoxical at how things can be so good on one hand but look so terrible on the other. And
Yeah.
I've really kind of see that outlook quite a bit myself. I think more than I would have thought I would have.
Yeah, that's
Some
why I
years
get frustrated, or I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's why I get frustrated when people are like, "Oh man, back in the old days, things were fairer." It's like, nah, no, they weren't. Your
if you
perspective
were,
changed.
yeah,
Shut the
yeah.
fuck
I mean,
up.
if you were white, it was pretty good back in the day. But if you weren't, probably wasn't that great.
Like, people were always killing each other for weird reasons that can't always be understood, or
Yeah,
just for dumb petty reasons.
exactly.
And I'm like, come on, guys. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to be like that guy who just shits on everyone's like waxing poetic. So I'm like, whatever. I'll just deal with this. I'll complain about it on the internet later. People who understand. Like the other day, like yesterday, my parents were having like a political debate. I don't want to
Oh
get
yeah.
too into politics. I was just sitting there. I'm just like, oh my god, it was painful to sit through.
I know that feeling.
I was just like, oh god. Oh. And it's like they don't understand it how I do, sort of thing. And I know that probably sounds really vain, but it's like, like I don't know what to say.
Yeah, we're definitely in a much more politicized world than we were.
I feel like the
But
judge spreading his gospel to those like degraded people, and they probably don't even know what he's saying.
yeah,
Maybe except for like Tobin.
true. Good analogy.
Though I don't want to say I'm like the judge because I'm not. Yeah, no, Cormac really likes his personification of like pure evil for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think he was pretty pessimistic in his outlook, but man, did he pull it off well, at least.
Yeah. Now, do I? I mean, I didn't always agree with like McCarthy's like outlook, but I'm like, yeah, I can see where he's coming from, most definitely, and he writes about it quite nicely. So it's.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say his style is always pleasant to read. Like there was a bunch, like I remember going back to Blood Meridian. There was just a bunch of stuff I completely forgot about, like him throwing the puppies over and
Yeah.
blowing up the cat and like going around and like beating up the preacher and
Yeah.
lighting that cop on fire. I mean, I'm just like, dude, like wait a minute, what book did I read? The bashing the kids' heads. I'm just like, what? I didn't
Yeah,
watch this
but
the first time.
that's all historical. The U.S. cavalry during the Indian Wars, it was known that certain cavalrymen would kill Native American women and cut out their female parts, I suppose you'd say, their uteri, and use them as a hat band.
Oh
That's actually
God. Ah.
historically true. So there's nothing really in Blood Meridian that's not historically verifiable.
Yeah. Though it is apparently based on an account that is, let's just say it's contested. They don't know if
Yeah, I've wanted to read that book, and you actually can read it. I think there's a Reddit page where it has a link to the manuscript that you can read the Samuel Chamberlain book. But
Yeah, I
it's
wanted to read that too because I'm just like, God, that sounds like I want to see where like he got some of his ideas for this. Now, I'm not saying he like ripped it off entirely. I know it's also just a
what
figment
I
of
didn't
his
understand about the book
demented
though.
imagination, but it's
What I didn't understand though is why he didn't put the actual characters in the book. Because like in the Chamberlain book, obviously like Samuel Chamberlain is not in Blood Meridian, so I always wondered that why he kept like Glanton and the judge as like real. Those are real characters, but then like the rest of them are just made up, even though you had like real characters to work with out of the other guy's book. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard like McMurtry played with Glanton too in one of his Lonesome Dove books. I haven't read Lonesome Dove, but everyone's like, "Yo, Lonesome Dove." I'm like, yeah.
I have to read it at some point. I do.
Yeah, no, I've heard McMurtry's good. I saw the Last Picture Show movie, and then I read All the Pretty Horses. I'm like, yeah, this kind of reminds me of that movie because it has that kind of same kind of country bleakness.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of country bleak. You're in a small town and nothing's really going on. You know.
Yeah. One stoplight. Pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where you're from, but um,
I'm from Arkansas, actually.
oh, that's where my grandma's from. She's in
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm from not a small town. It's maybe 10, 15,000 people, so it's not tiny. In some of those towns in Arkansas, you get like a population in single digits or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You also wrote another book called Apocrypha. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my first book. That I really tried to ape McCarthy's style too hard in that one. I think because the sentences came, I read over that now, and I think the sentences came out a little bit too choppy, a little bit too blunt because I was going too hard into what he was trying to do. I think I hadn't really found my own rhythm, so to speak. But yeah, that one was my first book, and I'm still proud of it. Even though I think I would reword a few sentences in there at the very least if I could. I think.
Like what's that about? Is that another like heartwarming journey of
No, that one's actually not. That one doesn't have the same level of pessimism. That one it's a work of metafiction. It really is. They are
oh
really toying around with metafiction. So I don't want to spoil it because I think the ending is pretty nifty. But it's like a kind of a post-apocalyptic thing, kind of like The Road, except
you
more.
really like apocalyptic like
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
how do you
bleak.
put it? You like the apocalyptic like vibes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like The Road, except more paranormal, I should say. And it's about a guy who's looking for a certain mysterious book out there in the world, whose contents he doesn't know what it is. But and that's all. That's all I'll say in terms of the plot because I do think I pulled off the ending pretty well with that. I think.
I can imagine. Yeah, no, but like I saw your one for Life Reviled, and it was oh god, but I saw like the thumbnail had like Ayn Rand on there and like Nietzsche
Arthur
and
Schopenhauer, Neil
Schopenhauer.
Sharon.
I haven't read him, but I know he's kind of all the cool kids like Nietzsche, I guess.
I do not like Nietzsche. I think that Nietzsche had a couple of I did read Thus Spoke Zarathustra last year, and half of that book is just nonsense, and half of it that's not nonsense. You really wish it was nonsense because it's. I think he had some good ideas, but I also think he was kind of way too in love with those ideas, and that he was blind to some other things. Uh, there is some genuinely horrible advice in that book. If you actually took it to heart, there's some genuinely dangerous things in that book in between the gibberish.
That's an interesting way to describe that book, but all right. I know. Wait, did McCarthy like Nietzsche? I don't know.
I don't know. The judge does have some kind of Nietzschean elements in him, I think. But then again, he's the villain of the piece, so I'm not sure if he really liked him or not.
Fair enough. You've covered a lot of books on your channel, Mike. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was doing the booktube thing since 2021, but up until 2023, I didn't really know what I was doing. I went through so many different formats just from putting the book on this shelf here in front of the camera and talking over it like a podcast kind of thing. Not the best way to rope in subscribers and viewers.
Yeah, like why did you have like what was that? It was like some sort of coat or something.
Coat? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
like when I did it in?
It was in black and white.
Oh yeah. That was just that was a filter that I used on the video. Again, I was like, I thought people came for the commentary, not for the commentator. So I was like, all I have to do is just talk about the book. But then I was like, oh no, I guess I have to actually show up on here to. But I think doing a little bit better now. I've got the length down. Some of those early videos were exorbitantly long, like hour and a half, 2 hour long videos. But now I've cut my videos down to about 20 minutes, give or take. So I think I'm doing better in that
Yeah, I
regard.
mean, I just use bullet points for my videos to keep myself on track, so I don't just sit there and ramble for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I had that problem in the beginning, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, you've covered a lot. Like it's funny too because it's like you talk about like philosophical pessimism and like depravity and all that, and you look like you just kind of it almost looks like you're like in the military or something.
No, not in the military. Never have been.
You just like to keep your hair short.
Oh yeah. I used to have my hair long back when I was in school, but I don't have the kind of hair that you want to be long because it doesn't go straight. It goes like a Brillo pad, so you don't want to. Can't do that anymore.
Fair enough. Yeah, you even covered the Turner Diaries, which I'm like, oh man, that's a if there is a banned book in the United States, like
Yeah,
there
that
is
was
like
my.
I know Americans are like really about freedom, but like that one might be like banned. Someplace it might be on a
That
watch
was.
list somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm probably in the system now for having bought that. That was one of my attempts at drumming up some views, and it worked too. That's actually one of my strongest videos. But yeah, that's a book I won't recommend anytime soon.
Yeah, I remember I read that. Actually, I didn't read it. I just read like a summary of it. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, oh god.
Yeah.
Ah, made
Yeah,
my head hurt. It's not even on Goodreads. Like that's how bad it is.
yeah,
It's not a good
it's
book.
not a good book. No.
Like not only is the content hateful, a lot of the situations are ridiculous.
Yeah,
Right
like
out of like Adolf Hitler's fever dreams.
yes, exactly. It's like Mein Kampf distilled into what passes for a novel.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like here's like a Nazi's wet dream, and I'm like,
Exactly.
oh
Yeah.
god, that's not good at all. It's just oh man, I mean it's inspired a lot of people to do bad things, so I mean I'm like I want to support that.
As they say, I guess, the important thing is just that you get a reaction. So the
Oh
success
god.
in that regard, I guess.
Yeah, like there's like I looked on Goodreads to see if that guy's like books were anywhere, see if there were people like trashing on it, and like because people review bomb. Like
Yeah.
there was one book called The Hitler We Loved. I'm like, you can't make this shit up.
Exactly. No. The Hitler we loved. Very strange definition of love there.
It's so weird. It's almost like a weird parody at some points.
Yeah,
I'm like this
it's
guy cannot be serious, and then you're like, this guy is serious. This guy believes all this nonsense.
yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's oh god, that book hurts my brain. I'm just and not in a good way. Like there's some books I'm like, that was pretty good, and then there's some books you're like, that was not good at all.
Yeah, there's some books that challenge you and stimulate you, and then there's some books that just want to make you wish you didn't even have a brain to read it.
So abominable by all, like, it's an abomination. I'll put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. An abomination is what that book was.
Yeah. I've also seen you've covered Ayn Rand on your channel, which is interesting. Because
Yeah,
I had a weird Ayn Rand kind of phase when I was like in high school. Not really that I was like an objectivist or anything like that, but it was more like, man, like I'm really interested in her ideas, and like I just read a bunch of her books. Now, to be fair, I didn't like a lot of them, but I think there's some interesting food for thought in there, like the kind
there
of
definitely
atmosphere she
is.
creates, especially in like Atlas Shrugged.
There definitely is. I tried reading that book a long time ago, and I was like, "What in the heck is this?" But then actually now it's weird because they say that like her stuff it hits you more when you're young, and then you grow out of it. But with me, I was like, I didn't like it when I was young, but now, and I don't. I'm not saying I'm like an acolyte of her, but I do appreciate it more now. I guess it took a global pandemic and massive government overreach to convince me, like, oh, maybe it's no point after all. And then, but yeah, it's. I was surprised at how thorough it actually was because it is. A lot of people write it off. I think they're like, it's not real. It's just. I mean, it's not a real philosophy. It's just her ideology. But I read Atlas Shrugged and I was like, no, it's definitely she definitely thought it through. If nothing else, you don't have to agree with it, but it is kind of thorough in its examination of things. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say Atlas Shrugged is like, I wouldn't call it one of my favorite books. I do think there's a lot of interesting food for thought, but there's a lot of it that kind of stretches my suspension of disbelief. And then
Yeah.
there's also a 70-page speech, which is just, oh
Yeah,
god,
none too subtle at that point, definitely.
oh. I'm like, at least have a little nuance in what you're writing about. Like, come on,
Huh.
because
It
I
did get a
don't.
reaction though. It did get a
I
reaction.
didn't like getting preached out when I've gone to church. I don't like it when I'm reading books.
Oh yeah, just one sermon to another.
Yeah, no, like the Fountainhead. There's some weird ideas about sex in that book.
That's the one of hers I actually haven't read. Although I have it, I found it in a Goodwill, so I have it over here for like a
Oh,
prop.
yeah, it's not bad, but it certainly has that kind of, I'm a free man. I can do whatever I want, and it does get a little rapey at points. I'm like,
Yeah, I've heard.
okay, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then I've read some of her like actual like nonfiction philosophical books, and I just could not do it. It was really tough.
Yeah, where's thin? I guess after
It's
that.
almost like a dry. It's almost like a dry like academic lesson, and I'm just like, I don't want to fucking read this. Like I
Well,
can put up with a lot of bullshit, but
mm,
ugh. Now again, I'm not like a rabid Ayn Rand like hater or anything like that. I mean, I don't agree with her ideas all the time, but I do think there's a lot of interesting like food for thought in there that a lot of people just kind of ignore.
very much so.
I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I'm just I think there's food for thought that people kind of just ignore.
Yeah, I think a lot of people with books like that, especially, will kind of just recoil from it and not really give it the chance that they really otherwise might have, just because they don't like the message of it, even if some of the reasoning of it is.
Though to be fair, selfish equal good probably would rub a lot of people the wrong way. So I can
Yeah,
understand why
it
people
definitely it
wouldn't
rubbed
read
me
it.
the wrong way. It did when I first tried to read it. I was like, "What in the world is she getting at?" But then I was kind of amazed at how well she kind of pulled it off, honestly, in arguing her point. She was a heck of a debater, seriously.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of her like interviews and like yeah, another one of my like admittedly like if you read like about her life, she was kind of like it's my way the highway, and you're like doesn't really work that way. But aside from that, I think she's good at like articulating her points well, even if I disagree with most of it.
Yeah, I can agree definitely.
Now would I recommend like Atlas Shrugged to like anybody? Probably not,
Oh
but
no.
it's definitely an undertaking.
Yeah, it took me I think about 3 weeks of just feverish reading, trying to get through it. Hardest reading I think I've ever done, except Moby Dick.
Yeah, like there's some of it that just is like I'm like, okay, how come this society has not like just collapsed already? Because
Yeah,
you might like look, socialists might not like this, but there is a reason that these people are like big things in society. They keep it going.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean, there's some stuff I don't love, like her kind of straw man of like socialism is kind of very ham-fisted. But there's some stuff in there that's in like the actual like society that they create. Like that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think BioShock kind of parodied it with
Yeah, I was about to say it's yeah, it's exactly like Bioshock.
yeah, they
Even though,
really parodied it.
um, but yeah, no, but yeah, like when it actually gets to the society part of it, like that's interesting to me.
Neat.
At least in my opinion, because it's just like this kind of weird libertarian utopia.
Yeah. Well, I know you said you're a writer too. Let's talk about your books. Have you written anything?
I'm writing something right now. It's like it's a fantasy thing.
Oh, really? Is it
Uh,
a standalone or is it going to be like a series?
it is part of a series, but don't worry, it is like you could like I'm hoping to have it where you could read the books standalone, but I'm a publication order sucker, so I would recommend just read them all in order. But I mean, I do want to have it where if you can pick them up and read them standalone, you can and you can follow it just fine.
That's the best way to go because that's
Also,
the
I
biggest.
didn't want to make like a big chunker too, so
Yeah,
it's like it's really nice.
that's the biggest problem I have with modern fantasy is that it's just book after book after book, and like you go like the Wheel of Time, is like
Oh
14
God, no!
books.
I haven't dared touch Wheel of Time yet because I've heard for one I've heard it's not aged very well, and two
Yeah.
it's freaking long.
So is yours more in the vein of like Tolkien optimism or like George R. R. Martin like realist brutality?
Um, I like more. I guess you could call it. I like more like literary. I like darker stuff in general. So like
Mhm.
Joe Abercrombie's very good. I liked his stuff a lot. Um, hmm, I do like Tolkien. I do feel like I actually want to reread Lord of the Rings at some point, see if it's like held up. But I do feel like I've moved on from Tolkien in some ways because it's like I mean I appreciate it. I think they're great, but it's like kind of like that's not quite what I'm going for anymore.
It's a little
It's
old
fine.
fashioned, I
Yeah,
think.
it's a little old. Yeah, it's old.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it holds up better than something like Lovecraft, but it is old. You can feel its age.
Yeah. Have you? Let's see. What fantasy have I read?
I know
I
you
have
read The
one.
Sword of Truth, which I was just kind of shaking my head when I saw. I mean, hey, I will admit, like, the writing in that book isn't bad, but it was just kind of, for me, it was just like, oh yeah, schlocky fantasy stuff.
I've only read the first book. I have the box set down here that has the first
And
three
then
in
it
it.
gets really into, like, the BDSM, like, psychic
Yes.
stuff, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, like there's 100-page section in that book that's just nothing but bondage. And so I bought because I actually liked that first book enough where I was like, I saw the box set in the store that had the first three in it, and I was like, I pick it up. But then I read the reviews, and it was like, no, just stop with the first one. Don't go on. So I
Don't
was like,
get
okay, maybe
tricked!
we'll
Yeah.
pump the brakes a little bit. But I
I
have
only,
one
I
of
only
Brandon.
read the first, I only read the first book, and I was just like, it was okay.
Have you read any Brandon Sanderson? 'Cause I have one of his books
Oh
down here.
God, I'm always talking about Brandon Sanderson. I've never read him, and one of those things where his brand of fantasy has never really appealed to me. I do want to read him at some point because, I feel like a bad fantasy fan if I didn't read him at all. But probably start with like Mistborn because I'm actually intrigued by that idea. Like, oh, what if the Dark Lord won? But aside from that, I've never really been intrigued by his because I don't love his view like magic is like this hard thing and it's just I don't want to get too much into like nerd like fantasy nerd stuff because
Yeah.
I know you're not much of like a fantasy reader, which that's fine.
Well, I've tried. That's why the Sword of Truth actually, or the first Sword of Truth book actually resonated with me a little bit better. The writing wasn't great, but characters I liked, and it went to some places that I like the bondage stuff that I didn't expect it to go to. But
Also just the fact Terry Goodkind was dick.
yeah, he really was,
He
wasn't
wasn't a
he?
nice dude, and I'm just
He
like I don't
wasn't.
want to support this dude. So I only read the first book, and I'm like, you know what, I'm good.
And you can stop with that first book. It doesn't really end on a cliffhanger or anything, but
Oh god. Like,
yeah,
I saw you covered American Gods, which is my favorite fantasy novel. At least
I
right
like
now.
that one. I really did.
Yeah, no, I
I,
mean it's again it's one of those like kind of it's more about like the vibe than it's more like a like more like it's more about the vibes than like a actual story at points. But
it
I
kind of
love it.
struck me. It kind of struck me as being like Percy Jackson, but for grown-ups, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. I wouldn't call it that because I don't like Percy Jackson all that much. But
Oh, you
it's
didn't?
yeah, it's weird. Like I'm okay with them. Like if you want something to like kind of scratch, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you want something to kind of scratch that itch, you can read that and you have a good time. But I'm just kind of like, yeah. Also,
I
I'm not a
read
big
those.
Greek mythology guy.
I read those books in high school, and the first five or the first series at least, and I was like, I kind of liked it, and then he just kept going with it and kept going. And I was like, okay, you gotta, too much of a good thing here, you know.
But yeah, no, I'd probably say American Gods is my favorite fantasy novel as of right now. There's some other
That's the
ones.
only Neil Gaiman book I've read.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised you started there. You're. I mean, I wouldn't start with American. I mean, you could, and you'd probably be fine. But it's very much like, you know, it's kind of like if you started with Blood Meridian first from McCarthy, just for
Yeah,
Gaiman.
yeah.
I'd probably start with like, I don't know, Coraline maybe, or if you want like a taste, like I don't know, Sandman. If you like comics, I know you covered Sandman on your channel.
Yeah, I covered some comics, Dark Knight Returns and such. I think I need to reread that. I might have to.
I thought your review of Dark Knight Returns was pretty hilarious because I had the exact opposite reaction. Like I like the comic, but the art style I don't love, and the movie I'm like, oh man, this is great.
The art style, it's an acquired taste, definitely. It goes from like realistic to like weirdly cartoonish and then back again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of whiplash a little bit, but I got used to it eventually.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean after that I've because the second book of that is going to be about some very dark stuff, so I'm going to have to do some research because while I wouldn't say I'm afraid of offending people, I would feel it would be disingenuous as a storyteller to not um, cover what I'm going to do in a way that's authentic and respectful. So I want to do some like research before I go on that journey. So I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna work on a western next because I can't stick with one genre.
Oh, okay.
I'm very
Sounds
excited
good.
to do that because I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be great. Cowboying, shooting, all that fun.
All that fun stuff.
But yeah, that's what I'm working on. It's gonna be fun when I complete that and be like, yeah, beta reads. But yeah, no, that's what I'm working on. But yeah, going back to fantasy, it's a weird thing because I mean I love it, but at the same time, like there's crap in it, and I'm like, oh man.
I've heard such good things about Joe Abercrombie's stuff, but I haven't. I really need to pick on one of his books because I've heard that they're kind of the cutting edge of fantasy, and I've been trying to get more into fantasy. Like, I have the Sword of Shannara down here,
I
but
haven't
I've
read
heard
that one.
you haven't.
I've heard that's like classic, like 70s, like weird metal fantasy. I've heard that. I haven't read it yet.
I think it's just a straight ripoff of like Tolkien. I think.
Wouldn't be
I
surprised.
think it does. It just copies the same plot from Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings.
no, I
I think.
mean, I mean, yeah, in the 70s it was particularly popular to rip off Tolkien entirely. So, it's just, yeah, man. I also saw you like Philip K. Dick. I do as well. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, I love Philip K. Dick. I've read 9 of his books now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I love him as well. I have some of his books over here. I've read Scanner Darkly,
Oh yeah.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I've read a lot of his short stories too, because
Oh
he's very
yeah.
good at
Yeah.
that. Would I say he was like a Bradbury level? Probably not, but he was very good.
Not in the terms of the prose, definitely. He wasn't the best writer, I suppose. It was kind of just
Oh no, I wouldn't
plain.
call him the best prose stylist, even if you like
No,
held
no.
a gun to my head. But like, it's a weird thing because I've thought about this. There's like those like type of writers. There's like there's the storyteller writers. So it's like Philip K. Dick, Stephen King. There's probably others I'm missing out on. Then there's like the prose poet writers.
Yeah.
And then there's like the ones who do both, and then there's the like kind of weird other paths I'm probably not thinking about.
Yeah.
Because there's some who probably are like, who like more about talking about like big ideas and whatever, and I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I mean, big ideas are cool, but it's like,
Still got to have a good story.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the reason I don't love like Isaac Asimov. Like I used to really enjoy his stuff when I was a kid, but then like I read it like not too long ago, and I was like, well, great ideas here. I don't really care about what's going on though. Sorry, man.
Yeah. I've heard that his writing is just awful, but the ideas
Yeah,
are interesting.
yeah. Like his characters are all the same. It's just, oh god.
Yeah.
Like at least like Heinlein created good story. Like at least before he went crazy with the like free love stuff.
Yeah.
Like he told
Yeah.
good stories, and he gave you characters that you liked, so you cared
Yeah.
about what was going on.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know if you've read Heinlein, but like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But he's just I'm like, at least I care about what's going on in those.
Yeah. Stranger in a Strange Land, Time Enough for Love. I've read those books. That last one was a doozy.
Yeah, he went up. Yeah, like as he got older and got really into like the free love stuff.
Yeah.
He really went off the rails a little bit there.
He did have balls though. He did
Oh my
have
gosh.
balls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I often compare him to Joe Rogan because I'm like, guys, you have to think about this. I don't know if Heinlein agreed with these ideas per se, but he's not unwilling to explore them, even if they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Especially like, like, oh God, he got into like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Some of them are
Very.
just, now there are some of them that are just bad, and I am not going to, like, and because of the content, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, like how often you hear a guy get called a hippie, a Nazi, and a libertarian at the same time?
Exactly. He was really one of a kind. He really was.
But yeah, like not like before the Stranger in a Strange Land, before he went off on the like weird. I mean it, Like before he did that, he's actually a pretty good writer. I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's better than people give credit for, anyway.
Yeah. He really was.
Because there's some people who are like, oh yeah, he was one of those kind of schlocky guys. I'm like, or there's some who are like, oh, he's just one of those ideas guys. I'm like, oh, not really. Yes, he did like ideas, but he was a good storyteller when he put his mind to it.
Yep. He definitely was.
I wouldn't say his prose is that engaging, but it's kind of like Philip K. Dick. Like he's good at telling you a story rather than just like, oh man, this language. Nah, then again, like how many readers really, unless you're like a writer, I don't know how many readers pay attention to that. but you know. But yeah, no, I'm like, oh, you like Philip K. Dick, and you're reading all these. Now, some of the books you've read, I haven't read yet. Like Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I read that one last year.
Yeah, I heard that was really when he went off the like when he was like, okay, I guess I'm doing these like weird, surreal, religious books now.
I don't know if it actually made sense or not, but it was a heck of a ride, definitely.
Yeah, I've heard it's really funny.
Yeah, there is kind of a weird humor to it, kind of.
Yeah, no, I've had friends who really like PKD stuff. He's good. I think he's good. Though there are some of his stuff that does go a little too into the just kind of weird. Hey,
Yeah, some of his Counterclock World. If you ever get a chance to read that one, don't do it because it's not worth it. That one went too far into the weird.
yeah, it's God, what's one of like I mean if I like Philip K. Dick's one of those writers I recommend in stages. Like there's
Yeah,
like the earlier stuff he did, and then
I
there's
can
like
see
the
that.
kind of gets a little weirder, but you could still kind of understand. And then there's like Valis, where you're like, what the fuck is he
Yeah.
thinking? You know, like I always say, like if you want to read like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep first, just go with that, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Though my
Get
favorite
a
of
little
his is
better involved.
still A Scanner Darkly, though. 'Cause
That's the most personal I think that he ever wrote.
yeah, it's like it has that nice balance of weird, but also that kind of heart in there, and I'm like, yeah. Also love the movie too. It's
Yeah.
probably the best like Philip K. Dick adaptation because it isn't just like a loose adaptation. Like they're like and also
Not like Blade Runner.
that rotoscoping was a really inspired choice. I thought.
I would like to see that movie so much.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it a lot. It is kind of a hangout movie, but it's a lot of fun. They get into some wacky shenanigans, as you'd imagine in Philip K. Dick stuff. Like what are some of the other books you've read from Philip K. Dick? 'Cause I haven't checked all of the ones you've.
I've read Man in the High Castle, The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, Ubik, The Scanner
I
Darkly,
might read Ubik next.
Blow My Tears, The Policeman Said, Counterclock World, Radio Free Albemuth, Transmigration of Timothy Archer, and I could have sworn there was one more.
Didn't you cover Valis? Because I thought you did.
No, I actually just picked up Valis down here.
Oh,
Uh, I
must have been
just
someone
actually
else.
got
It must have been someone else then. Because I thought you, or maybe I mixed it up with one of the other like weird religious books he did, which I haven't dared touch yet. Because I'm like, oh god. I might read Ubik next though, because I've heard like
yeah,
that one's like one of his best.
it's trippy, definitely.
Well, I like trippy, so I mean, I can deal with it. But yeah, no, he's good. I enjoy PKD a lot. It's definitely one of my favorite science fiction writers for sure.
Yep, definitely mine.
Yeah, like it's not even that like it's just weird with the content. It's just like it's strange. Just some of the word choices he uses and like the titles,
Yeah, very, very
uses
abstract.
words like he uses words like airsats, guffawed,
Yeah.
some other phrases that recur in his work I can't think of at the moment. I'll probably like get Ubik and just be like, oh yeah, that's one of those words I was thinking about. But like what are some reviews you've done that you really enjoyed that you're like, yes, this is peak criticism.
Oh, my own personal reviews
Yeah.
that I've done. The Atlas Shrugged one, I think, I put a lot into that, and the Turner Diaries one, I put a lot into that one. Then let me see. Oh, the Passenger, my review of the Passenger, I put a lot into that one. Oh, and the Moby Dick video, the one that's called "What Moby Dick Is Really About," I went all in with that one. That one took me like a week of writing just to script that, and then I guess those are probably my top four.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I enjoyed your Yeah, I like the one you did on Atlas Shrugged because it's like, yeah, I don't really hear a lot of because like it's such a divisive book, you know,
Yeah,
and
I was treading very carefully in that one.
yeah, no, I'm just kind of like, look, this book, you might not like it, but there's some interesting stuff in here you should think about. You don't have to
Very much.
like it, which is kind of a thing I think is wrong with our society. I'm like, look, you can read things, you don't have to like what it says, but you should think about it.
Indeed, yes. I
Because
second that.
if you don't, it's just, because it's like, it kind of drives me nuts when I see people. I don't know if you've ever read, like, um, like socialist texts, like the Communist Manifesto or anything like that, but.
I've never read the actual thing, but I've read quite a bit of stuff in that vein.
But yeah, like one of the things is like there's always this fear mongering, but it's like if you really want to oppose it effectively, you have to understand it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's always important to understand the opposite side, definitely.
Now I'm not always great at that, admittedly, because I can be a stubborn bastard. But
Can't we all?
but I do my best. It's just, oh yeah. I'm also a sucker for like post-apocalyptic fiction. I know you had like Robert McCammon, or I don't know if you've covered him, but I saw you mention him one time, and I'm like, God, I
Swan
want to
Song.
try his books at some point.
Swan Song. I've mentioned that book in comparison with The Stand because I think it did The Stand so much better than The
That's what
Stand
I've
was.
heard. I
Yeah.
like The Stand, but like that climax just kills it. Just
That it literally destroyed the whole book. The ending just wrecked the whole thing.
the ending was like the actual like when everyone gets back and it's like a kind of reuniting of the hobbits, like that's like fine,
Yeah,
but like the holy nuke, like that was just like, what was that? And I have heard that King was kind of like, I kind of pulled that out of my ass, which I would not be surprised if that were the case. But
he makes it out like that was some kind of grand in his book on writing. He makes it out like that was some kind of grand ending, and I was like, "Nah, you ruined the whole book with that ending."
but yeah, I've heard like Swan Song is very good, and I'm like, I want to try
It
that
is. It's very good.
because I'm like
Yes.
a sucker. Because one of the first books I read from McCarthy was The Road, because I'm a big sucker for like post-apocalyptic stuff. You know. I mean, would you say like I know you say that McCarthy is a pessimist, but would you say that The Road is like not maybe his most optimistic novel, but his most hopeful novel?
In a way, I think in the context of it, it's kind of clear that life is about to end on Earth, even though the kid, carries on at the end. There's not much hope for life to go on much longer. But in a more spiritual sense, yeah, I think he's saying that there are things in life that are more important than life itself, and it's possible to keep those things going even in times of incredible hardship.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also know it was kind of his thing for his son because he had a young son at an advanced age.
Yes, he did.
I'm guessing he's glad that he managed to see him graduate high school before he died. That's
Yeah, I hope they made lots of memories, as many as they could, because it's not easy having a kid at that age. I would not have done that if I was him, but
eh. I know he had another son that would something happened. I don't know, but it's just
yeah, he was a great writer, but not the best husband, I don't think.
yeah. No, I remember I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's like he made like his ex-wife, text like 15 drafts of a novel. I'm just like, oh my god.
No wonder she divorced him.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, yeah, that was probably why she became the ex. but you know, it's just. But yeah, no, it's. I think it was either No Country or The Road I read first. But anyway.
Great starting point.
Yeah, and that's why I say I'm like, yeah, you can start with The Road or No Country. You'll probably be fine. Um, but yeah, no, it's where's my other post book? I like I Am Legend a lot.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great book. Yeah.
though I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. I do enjoy it a lot. The movies have never gotten it right.
No,
Like
they
it
didn't.
sucks too, because that Will Smith one almost did. Like that alternate ending is so good. Like I'm like that, but it's just they went with the fucking they went with the
Yeah,
Jaden.
they lost their nerve, I think, with it in the test screening.
Dang it. You know, I mean, I like The Walking Dead, and you know, it's one of those. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if people don't like it. I do. So deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Like, what are some other like booktube channels you watch? And
Um.
also, have you ever watched Better Than Food, Cliff? Because
Oh yeah,
you
he's
kind of
he's
you kind of remind me of like you kind of remind me of his style, except you're not like you're more like, hey guys, I don't know.
a little more down to earth, I guess.
Yeah,
Than I
like
don't
I
have.
like Cliff, but there's some of his stuff where he's just like sitting around. He's like, yeah, this book. You're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, a little bit more down to earth, and plus he has a much better camera setup and editing software than I do. But yeah, he's at the top of the. I watch him a lot. Logan Albright, if you've never checked out his stuff, he's a
I
great.
have seen some of his stuff. I'm really bad at it's so like I'm subscribed to a lot of people, but I'm so bad at keeping up with like stuff I want to watch. You know.
His channel. There's another channel called It's Too Late to Apologize. She has a great channel. Um, let's see, and then Noah at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse. If you've never checked out his channel, really great content there. Um, let's see. I watch Leaf by Leaf on occasion, but his stuff is like way too. He reads books that I'll never read. So,
What do you read, like Gravity's Rainbow or something?
oh, it's like beyond even that. It's like it's the most ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, Gravity's Rainbow. I saw you covered that, but Gravity's Rainbow is one of those books. I'm like, oh god, I don't know if I could get into that.
I don't recommend it. It's not. I don't think it's worth it. But yeah,
Yeah, like I saw your one on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was kind of disappointing. I love that book a lot.
I I guess I can see why people like it, but to me, it just was. I just couldn't stand Hunter S. Thompson's voice. I was just if I had to spend an hour in a room with him, I feel like I would just it would have come to blows. I think.
You know what? That's probably it's I've heard like I had a teacher at my college who actually met him, and he was like, yeah, he was kind of a dick. And I'm like, just from some of the stuff I've like read from him, I can imagine he could become overbearing pretty quickly. So I don't know if
Yeah, it seems like it.
yeah, I was like, I don't know if I would be able to be in another room with him for too long, but I like his writing. Yeah, like it's just it's one of those. It's just like a weird, surreal, like fever dream, and it's one of the few books that have made me laugh like out loud, just at how absurd it becomes. But I can see how
Yeah,
people might not like it though. It's definitely an acquired taste, to use what you said earlier. It's like it's like really weird. Like I also have his other book, Hell's Angels, which I hope to read. I heard that's more like a conventional book, so
yeah.
I guess I'll see.
Oh,
But yeah, no, it's good stuff. What are some other books you said you didn't like? Well, you said Dune, but I agree with that, so that's gonna be boring.
yeah. That's my hottest take, I think.
That's one of those I don't get why people like that book.
I think it's more what it did than what it does, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, oh man. What are some other like hot takes you've had that I was like,
I think Go Set a Watchman is better than To Kill a Mockingbird. That's pretty
oh
hot.
yeah, 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 yeah. I don't feel too strongly about that, but I do really enjoy To Kill a Mockingbird.
I never actually had to read it in school, believe it or not.
Yeah, I did, though I had read it before then, because I was a weird kid. I liked, I don't know. I just liked reading those classics before they just, like I read The Great Gatsby when I was in 8th grade. So
Yeah, I don't. When did I read that? I think I was out of school when I read that. Huh. Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a great book, Great Gatsby.
Well, we covered some ground, haven't we?
Yeah, I guess we have. But before we leave, I just wanted to um, talk a little more about um, why I just call it Life Reviled because the other one I'm like I can't remember it at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I'm just it's curious why you wrote the. So are you going to write other books after this,
Oh yeah, yeah. I intend
or
to.
are you just kind of like this is peak literature? I'm done. You guys, I want to go into my
Well,
hidey hole.
I do think it may be peak literature, but no, I do plan to keep on writing. It's just as soon as I have another idea, I'll just get cracking, I guess.
Fair enough. I'm like yeah I'm just I'll be like I was just kind of not sure how that book because I thought it was kind of like a like I said earlier I thought it was kind of like conspiracy against the human race, but then you're like oh no it's a novel. I'm like oh okay.
It's like that book if it was a novel, yeah.
Okay. It's just oh god. Um, but yeah, no, I think we've covered most ground here. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for
Um,
having me.
you didn't cut out too much, so we're good on that. There's no
Oh,
storms or
good.
anything coming.
No, don't think so today. Yeah.
If you'd like to like share your stuff before we leave, feel free.
Oh, the book. Oh, yeah.
Like your social media, like YouTube or whatever
Oh,
you got.
yeah. The Falcon Reads is the channel. You can also hit me up at the Falcon on Instagram. Carroll Wainwright is the pen name. On Amazon, you can find my books under. So give a read.
I guess one last question I have for you, like, how did you come up with Carroll Wainwright as an alias?
I wanted a name that was like, I don't know why, but I just wanted a name that was like gender neutral. And Carol is like both a male and female name.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll go with that. And then the Wainwright, I don't know. If you look it up though, there's actually an artist from like back in like the 40s named Carroll Wainwright, whose name I guess I stole now, but he was a very minor artist, I suppose. So it's all right.
Mm, all right. But yeah, so that's it. I got Twitter and Letterboxd and Goodreads, so you can find me there. And Discord, which I just did. So yeah, thank you for coming on and discussing things. For
Yeah, thanks for having me.
yeah, we should do this again at some point. Maybe I'll. It's like what Jason said. Maybe I'll get you on and we can discuss Life Reviled and
Yeah,
I can
yeah, let's
take
do
you
it.
down with facts and logic.
Like the
No,
Ben Shapiro
no,
facts and yeah.
no, I'm kidding. But no, I would seriously if you wouldn't mind, I would love like if if I ever do read your book, which I probably will. 'Cause it seems McCarthy-esque. But I'll definitely have you on and we can talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
All
happy to.
right. Well,
Mm,
I'll see you guys later. And again, thank you, Carol, for coming on.
yeah, thank you.
All
Yeah.
right. Take care, everyone. Bye bye now.